by us now. So she's excited, and she came over and ended up joining us for dinner. So I said, I'll sign on and listen.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, we have all of our speakers, and we have Tommy Nahas is on here this evening because we're going Facebook Live for the first time tonight. So
wonderful.
I know. So Tommy, what did you decide to do with that? Are you doing it to all the chapters or just putting it on the Fan Central?
No, just to the Fan
Central.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't put stuff on other people's pages.
They might not like it, right?
Right. Oh, now I just lost everything I did. I had it all ready to go.
Oh no. Hey, Alfred.
Yes.
What do we have? 6:26.
Yes.
We have 12 people waiting. I'm wondering if we should start letting people in, just because I think that way they don't get antsy and hang up, you know.
So here they come.
Okay.
You want us to mute while we're sitting here? Is that better?
Sure, that would be good. Yeah. I know Alfred usually mutes all of us except for the speakers, so that's fine, but you can always unmute yourself too. So, well, hello everybody.
Hello.
Welcome. We're happy to have you join us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Got it.
Brandon, is that you? I don't think I've seen you in a long time.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hi.
Is that Dara?
It is. It is.
You see me?
It is you. I haven't seen you in forever. You doing okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Good. Good. We're happy to have you join us this evening.
I wouldn't miss it.
Good.
I usually go to celebrate recoveries on Mondays, but they're taking August off.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Good. Well, you can find us out here on Zoom.
Zoom's cool.
That's right. And you know, they're taped too, so you can always listen back at the
very nice.
ones that you've missed. So on our YouTube channel, which
Very
is
nice.
great. Yeah.
Dara, I think I'm going to go live with this now.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, so I guess then you want me to start talking about this if we're going to be, oh, I see it. Okay. Well, I don't know if I want to
Yeah,
start.
you can still wait if you want.
Wait a couple seconds. Okay. We'll do that. Otherwise, you're going to throw me off. Good deal. Well, good. I hope everybody's had a good day today. Enjoying the rain and the sunshine and all the crazy Michigan August weather. Enjoy it while we can, right? Not going to be here forever. So, good deal. We're just waiting for a couple more people to trickle on, and then we'll get started. So, for those of you that are on right now, what we've decided to do is we're going Facebook Live. This is our first meeting going Facebook Live, because we know that once we get past this whole COVID-19 pandemic, we're still going to want to have some type of an online presence. I think that's really important, you know, for people that aren't going to be able to come to our regular meetings or maybe live far away and still would like to join us. This gives you an opportunity to be able to still see what we're doing. And the good thing is that every single week, because there's 22 chapters in the state of Michigan for Families Against Narcotics, there usually is somebody doing some type of a live meeting on Zoom right now that you can attend. So that makes it really helpful for people looking and wanting more information about the disease state and on various topics, of course. So it looks like it's 6:30, so I'm going to get started so we can make sure that we're making good use of everybody's time. But I just want to welcome all of you to our Northwest Wayne Families Against Narcotics Zoom meeting this evening. I'm 𝗙𝗺𝗂𝗏, and I am the Executive Vice President of our chapter, and we're so happy to have you this evening. And we have a really great program scheduled. I'm just going to ask if everybody could mute, or Alfred, maybe you could mute everybody until it's time to have the speakers talk. That way, we won't have any background noise. Thank you. But I just, anyway, I just wanted to, again, thank you for being on and this evening, and just wanted to share a couple things about some of the things that we've been working on here at Northwest Wayne while we've been in this whole shutdown period and not being able to see you live. We greatly miss you, I can tell you that. It's kind of challenging having these meetings and only being able to see each other electronically, and we get that. I think it's painful for all of us, but I think that this is the next best thing. And as I was saying to our speakers earlier, what's nice about this is as I look out, I don't see everybody with a mask on, and that makes me really joyful because these masks are getting really old, and God only knows how long we're going to have them on. So anyway, we have, and generally speaking, we have 5 different meetings each month in Canton that we put together. One is our family forum, which we meet the first Monday of the month, and generally it's at one of the Canton Township buildings, but because they're going to be shut down until potentially October, we've been told that they may be opening up, so we're going to have to do Zoom again for next month. So bear with us while we get everything together and try to get our face-to-face meetings back. We also have our family and friends support group, which is undergoing a name change right now, and it is called Stronger. It's going to be transitioning over to Stronger Together. And right now they're also meeting via Zoom. And the great thing about this group is they have really formed a really strong family support group within our group. So there's probably anywhere from like 15 to 20 people that have gotten together, and they meet the second and fourth Tuesday of each month. And they basically meet for just an hour, and it's an opportunity for you to join in and ask questions. And they all have varying stories that they have experienced in their life. And this gives you an opportunity to kind of come alongside people that have experienced similar situations as you may be going through, and ask questions of people that kind of get it and understand the situation a little bit better. So we're really excited to have these meetings on the second and fourth Tuesday of each month. Again, there's Zoom. For more information, you can find that out on our Facebook page. We also have a grief support group that is running right now the second and fourth Monday of each month. And they're going to actually start going live because it's a very small group. There's like usually 5 people or less in it right now. And so they're going to start going live again. So for more details, please look on our Facebook page for more updates and information on that. We have some great events that are coming up and during this month. I don't know if you have noticed out on our Facebook page, we have a virtual Run Drugs Out of Town. Generally speaking, it's just Run Drugs Out of Town, and it usually is our largest fundraiser by far. There's a couple thousand people that usually attend at Fraser High School, but because of the shutdown, obviously we've had to move that to a virtual walk run. So basically what this means is that you can go be anywhere, if you're out of town or you're at your home, or you have, you and your couple friends or what have you want to get together and walk a 5K or run a 5K. The proceeds will go to benefit our fan chapters. So our particular group is called Team 𝗙𝗺𝗏, and it's Northwest Wayne Fan, and it's a $20 entry fee. And for $30, you can actually get a bib and a number, and they'll send you a t-shirt if there's any remaining. But you can find that information again out on the Facebook page. So we'd love to have you support us. It's a really easy way to be able to donate to a good cause and get some exercise in the meantime. So don't let the word run scare you, because I often think when I see those types of things, I'm not a runner, but I am a walker. And so I kind of tend to get a little shy of signing up for things that are runs, but please don't be. We would love to have you. And then on August 31st, it's International Overdose Awareness Day. And we are actually having, we usually have a get together to have a nice memorial service to honor those who have died from the disease of addiction. And this is really sad for all of us that we're not able to have the meeting, and partially because we, you know, there's just so many parameters around being able to hold outside events. So our chapter personally is going to be hosting one that's going to be online, and it's going to kind of follow the same format that we've done in the past. So please join us. It'll be starting, I believe, at 6:30 on August 31st. If you do want to do a face-to-face with International Overdose Awareness Day, our Fan Central chapter will be hosting something, and I'm not quite sure of the date, but that information too will be out on the regular Families Against Narcotics website, so you can find information about that. We also recently received a very generous donation from our friends at the Rotary in Wayne, and we just received a $5,000 grant from them, and we would like to thank them very much for the use of those funds. We're going to be partnering with the Rotary, and we have been working on a scholarship program for sober living homes. And so what the Rotary is doing is actually taking that a step further and providing backpacks for individuals to be able to, you know, oftentimes when they're coming into treatment facilities or into sober living homes, they really don't have a lot. And so these backpacks will be filled with like various toiletries and, you know, basic necessities that they might need. So we're going to be distributing those backpacks to not only the sober living homes, but also to treatment facilities like Oakdale and other facilities in the Northwest Wayne County area, so that we can help people get on their feet a little bit more. So we're really excited about that. We also have another campaign that is really exciting, and it's called the 1 Million Reasons for Hope campaign. This again is posted on our Facebook page, but the object is this, is that it's a $1 donation, and you just simply donate $1 and then you post it on your social media, and the whole idea is for you to share it and then the hopes that other people will donate $1 and then share it on their social media as well, so that we can raise funds to continue to do a lot of the programming that we do here at Families Against Narcotics. And that would be for our Families Against Narcotics Central location. So please feel free and join in on that. I think that'll be really a great thing to do. So I think that I covered everything that I needed to cover, at least I hope so. If I forgot anything, please, some of my wonderful board members share that with me. But right now, so that I don't take up any more time, we have a really great lineup of speakers. We actually have 3 speakers. So what I'm going to do is I'll introduce each one of them, and then what we'll do is at the end, we'll hold for questions. So if you want to send questions in on the chat, I will facilitate those questions to the speakers, and then the speakers can then, or they can, if they can see them, they can answer them themselves, but we'll kind of keep it like that. But again, if you could keep yourselves on mute while the speakers are presenting, that would be helpful as well. So I'm going to introduce them in order of their speaking, and we'll go from there. So our first speaker is April Meadows, and April is a certified peer recovery coach. She's a mentor with Personalized Nursing Lighthouse right here in Plymouth. And she's part of our Families Against Narcotics Hope Not Handcuffs program, which is another program that we hope to launch soon to help people. I'll let April share a little bit more about that as well. She's a person in long-term recovery from addiction, and she's a mother of 3 beautiful daughters, ranging in age from 9 years to 5 months. She also has 2 beautiful stepdaughters who are 10 and 9. And April is living proof that recovery is possible, and she will share her story of addiction and recovery with you, including the challenges she faced and attempting to reunify her family once she was in recovery. Our second speaker is Erin Lampani, and I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, Erin. She has been doing family preservation work for just shy of 10 years. And during that time, she worked for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services in its family reunification program. as well as its Families Together Building the Solutions, FTBS program. She received a bachelor's degree from Central Michigan in 2010 with a dual focus on family studies and psychology. So we're happy to have both of these great speakers here. Our last speaker will be Judge Susan 𝗙𝗺𝗆, and she was elected to Cass County probate judge in 1995 and has served since that time as elected probate judge, as well as presiding over the Circuit Court Family Division. In January of 2014, she was appointed as the chief judge by the State Court Administrative Office. Previous to that, Judge 𝗙𝗺𝗆 was a partner in the law firm of Weststraight, Holmstrom, and 𝗙𝗺𝗆, specializing in municipal and family law. She was the first elected woman prosecutor in Cass County in 1984 and served as assistant prosecutor and/or prosecutor from 1980 to 1987. Her docket consists of all traditional probate matters and all family matters involving children. Judge 𝗙𝗺𝗆 is active both in the local and state level. She is the past president of Michigan Probate Judges Association, past president of the Michigan Association of Drug Court Professionals, and often serves as adjunct professor for Michigan Judicial Institute. Has served on the governor's task force on child neglect and abuse, appointed by Governor John Engler and reappointed by Governor Jennifer Granholm, and has served on the Women's Commission, the Michigan Women's Commission. An appointment by Governor Rick Snyder, Judge 𝗙𝗺𝗆 also serves as a representative of the Tribal State Court Forum for Michigan and is a chairperson-elect for the judicial section of the State Bar. Judge 𝗙𝗺𝗆 was named one of the Women in Law for 2012 for Lawyers Weekly and CASA Judge for the year for Judge of the Year for Michigan in 2015. Judge 𝗙𝗺𝗆 sits on many other state and local committees, and she resides in 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, Michigan, with her husband, Tom Atkinson. Judge 𝗙𝗺𝗆 specializes in family law, domestic and child protection proceedings. Her primary focus is of vulnerable populations, elderly, and children. She has operated a family dependency drug court since 2001 and serves as an instructor for the Michigan Judicial Institute in the areas of family law, child protection proceedings, ICWA, and the legal ramifications of substance abuse and family. So those are our speakers that we have for this evening. And so I am going to turn it over to April. So if you could unmute yourself, April, or I don't know if Alfred needs to do that, that would be wonderful. So welcome.
Yeah. So again, my name's April. I'm a certified peer recovery coach, and I work with Lighthouse as well as Hope Not Handcuffs. Actually, I'll be celebrating 3 years clean this Friday, so it's super exciting. The drugs of my choice were everything, but in the end, it was heroin and crack cocaine. A little bit back history, I started using when I was 18 and a half. I had lost my mom when I was 17 years old due to blood clots, and I just didn't know how to handle life. So my first love was alcohol. So I used to party all the time. And then by the time I was 22 years old, I also lost my father from, he had got pneumonia from cancer and everything. So, I'm originally from Columbus, Ohio, so I'm not even from Michigan. So long story short, I partied a lot. I did what I thought was best, which was I used substances to solve all my problems. And of course it progressed, and I was never educated about addiction. So it just kept going on and on and on. So I figured, well, Ohio must be my problem. Let me move to North Carolina. And because alcohol is legal, I thought that was okay to do. So I continued to use in North Carolina. And my story really took off when I got to Michigan, because I met the father of my 9-year-old and my 3-year-old. When I moved to Michigan, within an hour of like getting off the Greyhound bus, I started using heroin IV. And at that moment, I switched from alcohol to opiates. I've always used crack cocaine. And I used off and on in my first pregnancy with my oldest daughter, who's now 9. The only issue is when she was 9 months old, I never understood like the physical addiction that came with heroin. So her father was getting locked up off and on. So when she was 9 months old, he was locked up and I needed money for drugs. And I would go to the plasma place to donate. Well, I ended up meeting this guy, and I was actually sold into human trafficking at that point. And that was the last time I seen my daughter, my oldest daughter. So I started using really heavily in the trafficking ring. And, you know, a big thing was I never thought I was capable of being a mom. And I literally used because I thought I was a bad mom, and I was a bad mom because I used. And I didn't keep contact with them or anything. I literally just walked away one day and didn't look back. And when she was about 2 years old, I was able to get out of the ring. And I went to the Salvation Army to get clean. I had weaned myself off of heroin and went into the Salvation Army. And that's when I seen her. She was about 2 years old at that point. And she had stayed with her father, who was in active use, and his mom. She had guardianship at the time. So I stayed in the Salvation Army for about 5 months. And one of the things that I don't really it's still a sore subject for me. I ended up getting pregnant with my son, who ended up passing away. I gave birth to him 2.5 months early, and he died when he was 7.5 months old. And then when I got kicked out of the Salvation Army, I ended up on Michigan Avenue in Southwest Detroit. And I immediately, when I had my son Jaden, I had put him up for adoption because I was homeless. I had nowhere to go. I couldn't even take care of my oldest daughter. So I left the hospital immediately and just kept using. I was in and out of, when I was on the streets, I contracted hepatitis B, I contracted hepatitis C, I was in liver failure, I was sepsis from being an IV drug user, survivor of multiple rapes. But once I had gotten sick, I started to go to treatment, and I ended up going to Lighthouse. Another girl on the streets told me, because I thought you had to have money to go to treatment centers. I didn't know that you can call this 1-800 number and do a screening and you can go to treatment. Like, that was never explained to me. I never knew about it. I literally thought you had to have money. And I came from a very good background. Like, I graduated high school, had full rides, everything. So I wasn't really informed with this type of lifestyle, nor did I ever think that I would go from being educated, my parents didn't have addiction, to being a prostitute on the street. So long story short, I was in and out of the Lighthouse. I did their residential program about 8 times. The last time I went into treatment, which was February 27, 2017, I entered treatment pregnant with my now 3-year-old. I ended up staying in Lighthouse's residential treatment. I was in the 21-day program for 4.5 months because I was a high-risk pregnancy, and I was on Subutex to keep me from going into early withdrawals with the baby. So I gave birth to her on June 15, 2017. She was a healthy girl. She was 8 pounds, 7 ounces, but she did experience withdrawals. So she was in the Children's Hospital NICU for 2.5 months. And when at that point I had her, the hospital that I had her at had notified CPS, and CPS had gotten involved. And that's when I started, around that time when I got clean, I started seeing my oldest daughter, who was still with her father and still with his mom. I was in and out of her life, the majority of it. So as I'm in a residential treatment center at Lighthouse in the June of 2017, July of 2017, CPS tried to get involved, but because the baby wasn't born with any narcotics in her system other than something that was prescribed by, I was seeing Dr. Christensen at the time, they didn't open up a case against me. It was immediately closed. But I was contacting CPS for my oldest daughter because I knew she wasn't in a safe place. I knew that her father was using around her, and I just wanted to, at that point, I was willing to have her removed from the home, and I was willing to fight for her. But unfortunately, while I was in residential treatment, her father and his mother took off out of state with her to Tennessee. I didn't know where she was in Tennessee. And when I had contacted the authorities telling them what the plan was, there was nothing that they said that they could have done until they were physically 100 miles away from me. And at that point, I had to really sit down and think, like, I live in a residential facility. Like, I have no home, no income, no nothing. So, and at that point, I had a baby that's in the NICU, and I'm like, I have no CPS involvement. What am I going to do? So I believe that everything happens for a reason. And I started researching, or like, there has to be a program for girls like me or families like me that need it. And I ended up finding Bethany Christian Services, which has a program called Safe Families. And I contacted the lady, and I was able to get my the baby into their program, because I knew as a mother, for the first time, I had to make a decision that I needed to figure out who April was. And I needed to learn how to stay clean, because I've literally used the majority of my life. I didn't know how to really hold a job. I didn't know how to pay bills. I didn't even know how to pay rent. I had nothing. So I let my oldest go, because I knew as long as I stayed clean, everything was going to work out. So, and then the baby stayed with the families, and I ended up relapsing August 6, 2017. I tried to get high on Vivitrol, which didn't work. And something happened in that moment where it forever changed my life. Something in me changed that day. And I started putting one foot in front of the other, and I made the decision to keep my baby in that program until I felt, and I'm so grateful for the families that stepped up and took care of her. And it's an amazing program. I'm still friends with the families today. So I graduated Lighthouse, and I ended up going into a 3/4 house. And through there, I ended up getting in touch with, I put it out on the world, I needed a job, and this amazing lady who you guys probably know, Shannon Hobson, hired me to clean houses, which is how I met Lauren. And, you know, this woman took a chance on me, you know, and it taught me responsibility, like how to hold a job, to show up to work. And I learned to start paying my bills, and I would see my youngest daughter on the weekends. And I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. I had mass amounts of warrant. I think I had 32 outstanding warrants for my arrest. I was wanted back in Ohio. And I went and I started turning myself in everywhere, because I knew if I wanted my children back, I needed to clean up the wreckage of my past. So I slowly but surely was turning myself in, being honest with the judges, you know, going in front of them, telling them, and, you know, by the grace of God, I was able to walk out of them. You know, I paid them off. I did my community service, and I did what I needed to do. But that was the biggest thing, was taking ownership of the things that I had done in my addiction. So in February of 2018, I was lucky enough to move into, one of my friends had opened up her own little 3/4 house, and she was going to allow me to have my baby there. So that's when I decided, and my daughter, I ended up naming her Serenity after the Serenity Prayer, because each one of my children is like a different stage in my addiction. And she was the child that brought me into recovery. You know, she's the child, there's an unbelievable bond between me and her. So I learned how to find daycare. I started putting everything together. So I had her, but I always wondered about my oldest. you know, and God puts people in your life that just everything's going to come together. Like, you keep doing that right thing. And I ended up meeting this girl through Narcotics Anonymous who was very good at internet searching and ended up finding their father and his mother and where exactly they were at in Tennessee. So I initially took the steps and called DCS, which is in Tennessee, and told them, which they had known about that there was a situation going on down there with them. I spoke with them. They advised his mother, because she had guardianship, but she lost her guardianship when she left the state. So they advised her to come back to Michigan, which they got on a bus and came back. She refused to have any contact with me. So CPS here got involved. You know, and I knew they were watching me to make sure I was doing what I said I was doing, which I had no problem with. And I did a visit with her I had seen her, you know, it had been like over a year since I had seen her, and she never really knew me either because I was never there, because my addiction took me away. But she knows everything because she's seen her dad overdose. She's seen her dad have seizures from benzo withdrawals and everything. So I took it upon myself, because I didn't have the money. I filed the paperwork in the court system myself for an ex parte order. It wasn't granted. We had to have a hearing. So I showed up to court, and CPS showed up, and they stood on my side, and they had seen my living situation. They had seen what I had been doing with my life. I had just started becoming a coach. Like, I was taking my coaching classes. I was really doing everything I possibly could. And I knew it was a big task taking on, because here I am a year into recovery, and I have one kid, and I'm about to get my oldest. Like, all of a sudden I'm becoming, yes, I had my children, but I was never a mom. So I was granted custody of my two children, even though I had the youngest. I was granted full custody on August 30th, 2018. And we had to do a police removal to get my daughter. And she's been with me ever since. I have an amazing boyfriend who has 2 little girls. So we have 5 girls all together. And we just had another baby. But unfortunately, you know, I knew, you know, a lot of people didn't think, you know, coming from being homeless to having nothing, like, I've built a life for myself. Like, I just bought a house in October. You know, 3 years ago, I was living in a treatment center. You know, I own my house. You know, I work in recovery. It keeps me clean. And then I have my recovery baby, which is Kinsley. I just had her 5 months ago. And, you know, last year I got some of the worst news. My oldest daughter and my 3-year-old, their father died of a fentanyl and carfentanil overdose April 23rd of last year. And, you know, I always knew, I just always felt it in my soul that that was what the end was going to be for him, because he never tried to get clean. But I'm just grateful that I put in the hard work to reunite my family, because she would have been there. She would have been there and seen her dad like that, you know. And I deal now with a lot of the consequences. Like, I can deal with the consequences of my using, but the consequences of my using on her, especially because she has reactive attachment disorder from the neglect and the things that she experienced. So she's in therapy. I still continue therapy, because I know that the only way is, you know, learning. And if she sees me getting help and continuing getting help, she knows it's okay to talk about her problems. But that is those are the issues that I deal with now. Is, you know, we're working on a relationship. It's still new. It's almost 2 years since I've had her. You know, and I've put everything I can into her, because when I got her, she couldn't read or write. She had to repeat kindergarten twice. But, you know, I was able to be that mom and be there finally, because of my recovery and because of working hard and not giving up no matter what. That I was able to get my family back together, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, because I have an amazing life today, and I never thought I was capable of being a mom, and now I am, you know. And I love my life, and everything that I've been through was for a reason, and I wouldn't go back and change not one thing, because I wouldn't be the person I am today, and I wouldn't have that fight and that drive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, April. That was an incredible story, and we're very grateful that you've done the hard work that it has taken to get to this point. So kudos to you.
Thank
That's
you.
incredible. So now I'm going to turn it over to Erin, and Erin's going to share her perspective on things.
I also want to say thank you, April. That is an amazing story, and you're a shining example that change is possible. Lots of people struggle to believe it is, but you've overcome lots of things, so just know for everyone it is. Anyhow, my name is Erin Lampanti, and I'm a family reunification family counselor. As Dara mentioned, I've been doing this job for about 10 years. So what we do in family reunification is kind of like the title says, we work on keeping families together. So in family reunification, which is the program that I've mainly worked, that's when families, moms, dads, parents together have put in all the hard work to get their children back in their care. Another program that I've worked is called Families Together Building Solutions, and that program is more of a stepping stone to help with some of the things that April talked about in order to either preserve their family from having their kids removed or to work towards that reunification that addresses the last program. The two programs are similar in that they are solution focused. So when a program like ours gets called into your home, we're really just working on how do we solve these problems and move forward. So in these programs, we work with a wide range of different areas. We can do some safety planning, help families to kind of look at what are the triggers that lead to either substance use or any of the other areas of concern that might result in our children being removed from the home. We work with families to establish self-care. Self-care is extremely important for lots of reasons. So finding things that help not only the parents, but children who've experienced traumatic events in their lives. How do we care for ourselves moving forward? We work with families to work on those concrete need things like housing and employment, securing transportation, childcare, helping to ensure that there's always going to be food on the table. Anything concrete wise that you can think of, we can help with. We work with families to build resources to their communities. So like April had mentioned, she didn't know that some of these things existed. When CPS or DHS puts a service like us in, not only are we there to help with some of those things, but we can connect you with other valuable resources in and around the community that you live in. We work with families to rebuild and or strengthen existing bonds with kids. That's a big part of the reunification and the family preservation process, is we want to make sure that kids are comfortable in their home and parents are comfortable being parents. We work with families to develop healthy relationships and to set boundaries with outside forces. Sometimes that's family, friends, acquaintances, you name it. Let's see. Sorry, I took notes. I'm really nervous. I don't usually speak like this. So as many of you know, substance use disorder can really affect lots of different areas in a family's life. So when CPS is called in on cases related to substance use disorder, they're looking at substance use disorder as well as how it's affected the home life. A lot of times they see things which could be related to neglect in terms of insecure housing, insecure food sources, neglecting a child's medical or educational needs, their hygiene needs, improper supervision, leaving the kids without supervision or in the supervision of people who may not necessarily be deemed safe. Can be issues with communication in the home, so an inability to effectively communicate amongst one another. Sometimes that can lead to emotional abuse, physical altercations, I've worked with families where teenagers have run away from maybe their home life because they're just not comfortable or happy there. We've seen substance use result in domestic violence between parents. You name it, we've probably seen it in this field, and we're there to help with all of that, if you can believe it or not. So we're just there to help. We are very big in the belief that change is possible in this field. So we want to make sure that you're successful in completing the changes and the goals that you set forth. Trying to think. For families who've had their children removed or at risk of having their children removed, some things that you can anticipate happening with your local DHS or the service provider is that you may be asked to complete a substance abuse assessment. Once that assessment is completed, you may then be asked to seek out further treatment, not limited to anything really. You might be involved in groups, therapies, individual or group therapies. You might be asked to participate in a rehabilitation program, educational courses, things that involve your kids and things that don't. You're going to definitely be asked to create a safety plan and then address those other concerns that I had previously talked about. Those are the programs that they would refer us to, which would be like the housing and the employment and things of that nature. Don't really have too much more to say about this, but if you have any questions, I could probably be a better help at answering questions in that regard.
I think what we'll do, Erin, is we'll hold the questions till the end. I'm sure there's been a couple that have come in, but we'll hold them till the end after the judge speaks, okay?
Okay.
So are you good for now?
I think I've covered everything in terms of what reunification looks like in preservation.
Okay, fantastic. Great job. Thank you. So now we'll turn it over to Judge DuBois and let you take it away. Thanks.
Thank you. I've been a family court judge since 1995, and I'm at the other side of the state. I'm closer to Chicago. In fact, we're right on the border of Indiana, just north of South Bend, Indiana, and Elkhart, Indiana. Unlike your side of the state, our primary drug, although we have heroin and fentanyl, and is methamphetamine. And so that tends to be our primary drug on my side of the state. I got involved in family treatment courts because of April and individuals like April. I started in '95, as I indicated, and in 2001, I started our treatment court. And the reason I started the treatment court is that it seemed like all the substance abuse cases that I was having was moving towards termination. And the system was not equipped to handle cases with SUDs. The judges weren't trained, the lawyers aren't trained, and those cases ended up, but it felt like failures where we weren't able to get the proper services for people. But really, those case failures were failures of the system to adequately address the substance issues that the courts are being faced with. So I started the family treatment court that we have, and we were the first one in Michigan in 2001. I had read about treatment courts in Florida, which where they originated in Dade County, Miami, and saw the successes and was hoping that that would transfer to the family setting. I personally think that the family setting is the best setting for all treatment courts because everyone comes from a family and they have to go back and live in that family, being sober and doing the things that they're supposed to be doing, whether it is providing support or raising children or living in a family structure. Now, family treatment court is defined as a family court case on the family court docket where the primary issue is child abuse and neglect, and the parent's presenting issue to court is substance addiction. That has to be, it has to be an addiction, not abuse. And usually there's other co-occurring mental health issues that go along with that, and often domestic violence. So we'll see individuals with SUD and depression, as well as other mental health factors. The judges, court personnel, staff, the treatment court providers work as a team to provide appropriate services. And with methamphetamine, which tends to be our primary drug, the intensity of it, many of the individuals are in jail. They were arrested, their children were in the home, the children were immediately placed in foster care because of Michigan meth cases are mandatory petitions. And the addiction is strong, just as it is with all other addictions. So what I know from running a treatment court since 2001 is that they are generally more successful if you begin with early assessment, so that you can do an assessment and adequately understand the individual that's coming to your court and the issues that they have. And we address all domains. So not only do we address the SUD, but we address all the other issues that the individual has. And April really did a great job in laying out the issues, because they are the same issues, April, that I see in every single case. I mean, they may have a different twist, or one may be more pressing, but they're always these issues. The SUD itself, I'm working on sobriety, housing, relationships. Relationships are critical in all these cases, and what the relationship is doing to that individual's sobriety. Again, April, you were so correct. Almost everybody coming into court have warrants to clean up. They have a driver's license to get back. They have to learn life skills. They have to learn parenting skills. They have to learn safety planning. And it's more effective when you have a team that is working with that individual and is treatment focused. Like other treatment courts, we go on phases. So we have phase 1, 2, and 3. So our first phase is primarily focused on sobriety. And once we get sobriety a little bit under the way, you know, and have some period of time where there is sobriety, then quite frankly, we move into what I think is the hardest area in our court as a trauma-informed court, is to deal with the trauma. And we've been a trauma-informed court since 2012, which really focuses on, in my case, or in the case of our courts, but in most courts, why is that person there? And in the majority of cases, April's description really describes that the majority of women in my court, and the majority of women have a substance use disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder. And if you don't treat both of the co-occurring issues, you're not going to make progress. Nationally, 60% of all women and 40% of men with substance use disorders have post-traumatic stress. So it's critical that our courts provide treatment for trauma. Why do people use? Well, they use to numb the feelings, they use to cope, or to relieve the emotional pain. And in a sense, it's similar to a slow suicide. And so if we don't make changes in the trauma, we have found with experience from our 2001 and 2011 that when we had relapses that were serious, or people were repetitioned in court, they were repetitioned because we didn't address the traumatization of that individual. So our focus is heavily on trauma and sobriety. Excuse me. We find that secrecy and controls are themes in each of the cases. We try to de-stress the situation for individuals. We know that court traumatizes individuals, and we recognize and try to limit the impact of trauma. I'm sorry about that cough. We look at the e-school.
Judge, you're muted. We can't hear you. You're muted. There you go.
All right. Perhaps if we could take some questions, I can get this cough under control and I can come back.
I have a question, Judge DuBois. First of all, thank you for coming. And I guess my question, I don't know really much about the whole system, but can parental rights be restored once they are taken away from someone? No?
No, not legally.
Okay.
They
Yeah.
do practically sometimes happen.
Okay.
So I've seen the situations where mother has become sober, grandma who adopted passed away,
Yeah.
and we appoint mom guardian.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's hopeful for people, I think. You know, it's a good thing to know that, you know, it's maybe not completely, you know, out of the question. You know, if somebody does happen to lose their parental rights. So once a child is adopted out, there's no, yeah, unless it's to a family member or somebody like that. But I have some questions for Erin that I could ask. Erin, so you're working for DHS and not Child Protective Services?
So I work for a private agency that's contracted by DHS.
Okay. Can anybody just call up and ask for help? Or are you referred from CPS or DHS?
So we're a referral-based program through CPS or foster care, either one of the two. But
Okay.
we've had families who are very strong advocates for themselves, and they have called and specifically requested to work with our programs. And once they really kind of advocate strongly enough, their referral source will put in that referral for them.
Isn't there a danger though that if you go to them for help, let's say you're in the middle of addiction and you go for help, that your kids may be taken away? I mean, wouldn't that stop some people from asking for help?
I will say I have cases where families have reached out to help and then it has resulted in removal. Some of those parents were hoping that that might happen in order to give them the time and opportunity to get the help that they need, and some don't want that to happen. It's an unfortunate result. But I will say promisingly, many of our cases where substance use disorders are involved do result in reunification after some period of time.
So when you step in to help somebody, it's to prevent terminating a person's parental rights.
Correct.
You're hoping to preserve that relationship and not have the parental rights be terminated.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
that is the goal. Okay.
What their goal really is to keep them out of the system.
Okay.
Family preservation is intended to be a diversion to keep them out of the system. If they unfortunately end up in the system, then the court's obligation is to attempt reunification, and then the last resort is termination.
It's a different world than, you know, what I'm used to dealing with in district court. I do see, you know, people who have lost their kids because of addiction, you know, who are taking care of warrants and things like that, that have open cases with Child Protective Services. And we have seen, you know, some parents get their kids back after participating in our program, but I didn't understand the criteria, you know, how difficult is it to get your children once they're placed in foster care? Like, what are the steps that you'd like to see, Judge DuBois, as far as getting the family reunified.
Well, I'd like to see the systems more coordinated.
Yeah.
Family and district, because district should be a family court too. And,
Right.
you know, so they need to learn the family concepts and coordinate with the child protective system at the same time, so that we're keeping children safe, but we're allowing our parents the opportunity to become sober.
That's an excellent idea.
So, you know, at least in our county, we have a continuum of care because I'm chief judge. So we have a sobriety court, we have a family court, we have swift and sure. And we can have a parent in one of those systems, depending on which grant has an opening. And those workers will work in my court for the family, and then they'll be involved in district or circuit for that individual. Because if you don't work with the whole family unit, that individual is likely going to fail in another way. You know?
Right. Yeah,
So,
I agree.
Family care that the systems need to provide, and our courts are siloed, you know, unfortunately. And in a big county like Wayne, I imagine it's even more. You have municipal courts, and then you have your district courts, and they don't even know the circuit courts. And so how can an individual understand that system unless they have someone that will help them through that system?
Right.
Whether it's a mentor or somebody that understands it. I mean, it's too complex.
Yeah.
And then it sets up these barriers that make it too difficult for individuals to work through that system. So my county, I mean, Wayne County might have some public transportation. You have more than we do, but how do people get to work if they don't have a driver's license? And how can they support their families? So you have to work on all of that.
Right. I know in our city, I've heard of DHS working with Michigan Works to actually get people cars and things like that to help them get to work. So Erin, is that something that your agency would assist someone with?
Our agency, depending on the program a family is referred to, does get some fundings. We kind of fall under that umbrella of DHS funding in that matter. If we can't specifically provide enough funding, then we'll help locate resources to try to group everything together and get families what they need.
I have a question for April. April, did you represent yourself on the child custody matter, or?
Yes, I went down to the court building, the Coleman Young building here, and I went to the legal aid and got online to the Michigan Freeman, whatever the website is, and did the paperwork. I went from floor to floor and advocated for myself.
You got a lot of moxie, girl.
That's awesome.
It's really
I was very determined. Like when we found her and we knew she was here in Michigan and I had seen her, I mean, it was scary to make that decision. Like, because I knew I was facing a lot of issues, but I was like, I'm her mom, I got to do this, and I went for it. First I was denied, and then we were, the ex parte was denied the emergency right then and there, but a couple weeks later I was granted the full custody. So yes, I did all the footwork.
And
floor.
Try to resolve our cases so that the parent who we place the child with, they establish their sobriety, the home, and we make sure that there's a custody order that goes along with that situation, so they don't have to face a court alone, because that's really hard to do. Yeah, you really are a tough gal.
Well, I knew if I didn't do it, and the good thing is, unfortunately, her father, passed away of an overdose. But even when I got the custody, it was removal from his mother. She wasn't too happy about it. She's still not happy about it because I don't allow communication due to the trauma that she's experienced while with her grandmother and her father. But the good thing was the father never fought me. He was like, they're better off with you.
Okay.
So that was the good thing, unfortunately, she took it hard. She lost her father. But the good thing was I had her, because if I wouldn't have fought, she would have been there and she would have seen her father, dead of an overdose in the family bathroom. So I did what I needed to do to protect my child.
Yeah. Well, April brings up an important point that in family treatment court, every person has a treatment plan. And when I say person, usually we have 3 or 4 kids and a mom and several dads. And every treatment plan is individualized because many of the children also have trauma as a result of the circumstances. And so you have to work on each treatment plan on a family case as compared to a criminal case where you're focused on just the defendant or the individual on the case. And so we have parents that are, but their children are having additional issues. And so, we have to go through different programs. We use Western Michigan University on our side of the state to develop a treatment and a trauma-focused plan for the children. And it's a multidiscipline assessment that's really detailed with therapists, PhD, occupational therapists, as well as pediatrician. But everyone has different forms of trauma and different treatments, and everybody reacts differently. So each case is unique and cannot be cookie cutter.
I have another question for Erin. Erin, what is the success rate? Do you know what your success rate is as far as, keeping families together? Do you keep records like that?
We do keep records. Actually, it's a really important part. And we have over 80% success rate that after family preservation programs have come into the home, about a year later, they're all the family's still together, which has grown. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, how long is the program? How long is the program that they're in? Is it 1 year, 2 years?
In terms of family preservation, it depends on the specific program. So in all 83 counties, we have Families First, and that's about a 4 to 6 week program. So it's really short term, but very intensive in terms of weekly hours. The programs that I'm more familiar with and work in family reunification, it's 4 to 6 months. And in Families Together Building Solutions, it's 3 to 6 months.
And how do you determine which program somebody goes into?
So that would depend on where the family is in their process during the time of referral, and then what's available in their specific county as well.
Do you work with courts at all? If somebody has a criminal case, do you communicate with courts as to progress or anything like that?
We are not super involved with the criminal court cases, unfortunately. Family court mostly, and we do get communication from them through their referral source, which would be the DHS or other agency referral.
Okay. I was going to ask Judge Dobrich, I know you probably have statistics about your treatment court and how successful people are that go through the program successfully.
We do, and with each grant you have to do an evaluation. We're about 60%, and we base ours upon repetition within a certain period of time. And because our cases are cases that were actually petitioned in the first place, they generally are, cases where the addiction's more severe. Our success rate increased when we focused on trauma and when we provided assisted medication. So our cases, we do use assisted medication. We find it extremely helpful. We've had additional training in the area of how to handle moms who are pregnant.
Mm.
And that's a very complex area and one of lots of concern, because those courts that do not use assisted medication have often caused a lot of harm to the mother and unborn child. Our mentors, to me, are probably the most effective member of the team. And when we've added mentors, that's also been a component that's been very successful for us.
I have a question for April, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
You mentioned Vivitrol. Did you find that the drug was helpful for you? I know you mentioned that you tried to use and didn't get high from it,
Yeah.
but did you continue to use it, or did you go abstinence-based?
At that point, because I like anything, yes, I was on Vivitrol. I tried to get high. I couldn't. So the shot does work.
Yes. Okay.
But at that point, even the shot didn't stop me. I suggest it, and I recommend it to all my clients. But for me, I was, 1 foot in the grave, and I needed to literally face my demons, and I went abstinence-based. I worked a 12-step program. My sponsor is a 3rd generation of Dr. Bob. And she was like, you're going to sit down and you're going to do these steps and you're going to learn to live life on life's terms. And I've been doing it ever since. And I don't know what happened. Also that night when I decided, I used because I wanted to hurt somebody else, because I did the one thing you're not supposed to do in recovery is get into a relationship. So I used with the intention of hurting the other person. But actually the 2 people that I was with that I decided to call both OD'd that night. So it was the reality, and I have yet to experience an overdose ever in all my years of using. I've experienced a lot of other things and a lot of health complications, but I don't know, something happened that night and I wasn't high. Yes, the drugs were in me, but it scared me. And something changed in me that day. And I don't know, it's just not there anymore for me. And I got out when it was heroin. And so the whole fentanyl and the carfentanil scares me. And I work in the treatment center world and I see the struggling, and it's a different beast altogether now. But I highly suggest Vivitrol, especially.
April, I had a question that came up, but I think you just answered it. They were asking, what was your defining moment to get clean? But it was kind of just that, right?
It was that, what brought me into treatment, for the last time for me, I was pregnant with my daughter. And I knew at that point, I made a dumb decision, but I was like, what am I doing? My daughter had just gotten out of the NICU the day before I relapsed. And I'm like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? So I named my daughter the Serenity Prayer for a reason. I don't know. She was my saving grace. There's that bond that I have with her is undescribable. And I was fed up. I was fed up with the lifestyle. I was fed up of people making money off me. I just want to take control of my life again, and I learned to take all the pain that I have ever been through and use it for good. Like, everything happens for a reason, and with pain comes growth.
Absolutely.
A question for Aaron.
Who just said that?
That was Randon.
Oh, what's your question, Randon?
I have a question for Aaron. What's the difference between what you do and what an interventionist does? What's the difference?
That's a good question. I think that what we do is that we're specifically focused on the preservation of the family. So we're looking at all aspects of home life when we're creating goals. And I'm sure an interventionist does something similar to that, but because we're focused directly on family preservation, that is the driving force behind everything that we do, is how does it affect all members of the household.
Thank you.
And Aaron, I have another question that came up. Does each county have services like the one that you work in? Do you know?
Each county has Families First. That's the shorter, more intensive 4 to 6 week program.
Okay.
And then the larger counties have the other programs that I spoke about and a couple other family preservation programs as well.
Okay. Okay. And here's another question for you. My wife and I are divorced, and we have completely different opinions on how to help our 30-year-old son. Is there something, someplace that you can recommend for the three of us? The one thing that I had recommended was we offer family recovery support services, but I think I'd like to hear what you have as well.
I would maybe need to know the area that the family's in to maybe make a informed recommendation.
Oh, I don't know. If whoever asked that question, if you could just let me know, or if you unmute yourself and ask and say where you're from, that would be helpful.
Yeah, that was me. I'm 𝗙𝗺𝗁. We have a 30-year-old son. My wife and I are divorced. I take more of a hard line with him, and she's the nurturer and the enabler, I think. Well, there's no doubt she is. And I was just wondering, he's been in and out. He's been to Lighthouse. He's been to Salvation Army. He's been to three-quarter houses, and nothing. And he's had sponsors, and he had a peer recovery coach. And I think the peer recovery coach has passed away. I forget his name. I looked him up, and I think he's passed away now. He was an older guy. But, you know, is there something, some organization that, or a person, I'm looking for a person where if I can get the three of us together, that we could sit down at a kitchen table and discuss things. Discuss my son's addiction or his medical issues. That's my question.
So you're in Wayne County, right?
Yes,
You're right here.
Yeah, I'm in Wayne County.
Unfortunately, I'm not super familiar with what resources are available to Wayne County. I'm out of the central Michigan, Lansing area. I would suggest, if he's open to or willing to speak with any kind of interventionist or therapist. I mean, sounds like you've tried most things that I would suggest already.
He's currently on Vivitrol, and that's once a month, and it's like $1,500. And you know, he's been on the Suboxone and the other one I forget now. He's on Vivitrol, and he's trying, but you know, he goes off. He just goes off. And I told my wife at the, you know, I said, look at Debbie, you got to come up with a contract. And I sent her a contract that the family support group has, and I said, you know, this is what you got to make him write this contract. You got to make him responsible for the things that he does. And what is the repercussions when he breaks any of those rules on that contract? No, I don't think she's going to do that, but you know, it's just one step. This is what you got to do, you know. And I'm thinking, well, okay, is there another avenue for us in Wayne County where I could talk to where the three of us could sit down and talk to someone and say, okay, Neil, you're crazy. Mrs. Morawski, you're going down the right. Now, if I'm crazy, that's fine. Now I'm 66 years old. I've been called a lot worse. So
hi,
yeah,
Neil.
I need
I'm Kelly Herring from I'm with the Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network, and I'm an ambassador. And they have a 1-800 hotline that you can call, and they have a list of providers and different services that you can receive in the county of Wayne. Would you like their 1-800 number?
Yes, please.
It's 1-800-241-4949.
And also, you know, I'm a coach for Hope Not Handcuffs. I'm a peer recovery coach. But we, like, you know, Dara said, there is family coaching, and there are coaches that specialize with the family unit, and I think that could be very well utilized.
You're right, April, and bless your heart. You're just one strong woman. You bring tears to my eyes. But I'm also a member.
But I agree with you. I'm more on your side. I think it's for me, you know, I do have an aunt and uncle that, you know, live back in Ohio, but they knew addiction. You know, my uncle was in the medical field, and he was like, absolutely not until you can prove to us that you have your stuff together. And I mean, it was a long fight. I mean, and then I just learned to be quiet and just put in the footwork. But I do, you know, us as addicts, we have to have consequences, you know. And unfortunately, sometimes you just got sometimes you just gotta let them go. Like, you gotta let them, because you can't save them. And, you know, things reversed for me when I, you know, came into recovery. Then I found out I'm codependent, and I became an enabler, and like all these things. And I wasn't serving this person any good. I needed to put my foot down and give the consequences that were given to me. And, you know, it worked out, thank God. But I completely believe that you're in the right forum. You know, enabling is not helping the situation. I mean, we're great master manipulators, and we'll take advantage of it. You know, and I know it's a hard thing to let go of a child, but sometimes, you know.
He's a classic manipulator. He says the right things at the right time. And I'm also a member of the Hope Not Handcuffs here in Livonia, Michigan.
Okay.
And what's her name? I forget. Anyways, yeah, there's a meeting tomorrow morning, or late morning, early afternoon. I think it's 10 to 11 or 11 to noon. I forget. But yeah, that's been very helpful. And what that's done for me is that's allowed me to introduce myself to all the neighbors in the neighborhood here that have young kids and say, look, I belong to this group called Hope Not Handcuffs. And if you need help, or if you know someone, please let me know, and we'll direct you to the right person. Now, I just don't know the right person. Thank you, Kelly. I'm going to give the 1-800 number a call to contact for my son. I mean, he's been through, you know, the halfway house, the three-quarter house, Lighthouse, the Salvation Army. He's had sponsors. He had a peer recovery coach. You know, I'm running out of things to do, and I don't think he's hit rock bottom yet. He told me he did when he almost got caught shoplifting, and it was cold outside, and so on and so forth. But I could see it in his eyes. He's thinking, yeah, I lucked out. I made this one. I passed this one. You know, I can get back into it again.
Neil?
Yes.
I think a family recovery coach would be really helpful for you. I love that you're part of the family and friend support group, but I think a family recovery coach, that's provided free as well through FAN. So you have that as an option. You have the Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network number. So those are a couple things. So you're doing everything you can. So, you know, God bless you for that. So we got to, in lieu of time, we got to kind of keep things moving here.
Right.
So
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take
Oh
it.
no, that's okay. That's quite all right.
Thank you, April.
You're welcome.
Okay. So let's see. The next question was, are there people who help with anxiety experience just having to appear in court, and also help with the filling of the appropriate paperwork?
There are, and our case managers are trained to deal with that anxiety. One of the things that we've discovered during the pandemic is that individuals who are more quiet in court like the Zoom setting. And so we've been using, you know, Zoom effectively, and we'll continue to allow Zoom even when our courts are open. But we're training everyone in the system. We got a trauma grant. And so that the person that greets somebody at the door greets them in a way that's friendly. So that's not triggering, and then all the way through the system. But we help with the paperwork and process the paperwork, because not many of them have as much moxie as April that can do that paperwork and work their way through. That's pretty daunting. So, you know, it's just keeping in mind that everyone coming into that system, we assume that they have trauma. We don't just do the assessment for it. It's a natural assumption for all our cases.
Okay. Very good. Okay, and then another question for you, Judge. Is family treatment court available for a single 30-year-old addict? Do you know if there is family treatment court in Wayne County? Actually,
That would, if they're single, then they wouldn't be in a family setting. The family part of it is abuse and neglect case. So there likely is a drug court in Wayne County that they may be a part of. But if they don't have a criminal case, they wouldn't be part of the system. Then they would have to use other services, either community mental health or other services that are available for them.
okay.
Now, as when I answered Laura, we are cross-training different courts so that if they're in district court, they have an understanding of what's available in the family system and they can be involved in those services or those counseling services that will work with families. But if they're charged in criminal court, that it's just the individual. And but district court or circuit court could provide family services if it's known to that court and they make those readily available through cross training.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Here's another question. Does DHS or family reunification agencies keep data on how many families are successfully reunited in these programs in terms of parents who are incarcerated? Is there a time frame involved with whether the children are in foster care or adopted?
The agency keeps records of all the cases, and if a parent is incarcerated, it depends on what permanent plan the court developed. The court has 5 options of permanency plan. One is reunification. If someone's in prison, obviously that reunification can occur. Adoption, or placement with relatives such as a guardianship, or long-term foster care. And all those cases, records are kept. And each case is different when you're talking about incarceration, whether you're talking local county jail time, are you talking prison time, are you talking a short prison time, are you talking long-term prison time? So you have to look at it individually and the type of situation that the incarcerated person is in. We provide and are obligated, I can't say that it's done correctly everywhere, but if an individual is incarcerated, they have a right to still be present at that hearing. And so we've been familiar with Zoom and other methods for a long time because every court in Michigan has a polycom as well as the prison, so individuals have the right to be present at any case involving children, whether it's a guardianship or whether it's in family abuse and neglect.
Okay, very good. Thank you. How do you find mental health services for individuals who need trauma-informed therapy, and are there therapists available through the courts?
There are, and it's up to the judge to be a leader to find out what's available. So the courts doesn't necessarily provide it, they're the referral for the appropriate services. And so that without, judges and lawyers need to be trained so they can recognize that the issues that they're facing, so that the referral that's being made is appropriate. And so if you have trauma involved in a situation, you want to make sure that that individual has a training in trauma and likely can provide trauma-focused CBT or other type of evidence-based practices for the trauma.
Can I just add to that really quick? Yeah, it's one thing for the judge to order treatment, but it's another thing to get it paid for. Some people have private insurance and doesn't cover certain things. I may think somebody needs substance use disorder treatment, but the insurance company may say no, based on that person's answer to the assessment. So if somebody is on Medicaid, though, they go through Detroit-Wayne, through the health authority. So, and we sit with them and they call the number But sometimes I think they might need residential treatment, but they'll only be approved for outpatient treatment. So it's judges can only do so much, but judges can definitely be made aware that there is a mental health issue and can order it. But as to whether or not it'll actually happen, I'm ashamed to say that it doesn't always necessarily happen that way.
And for those who who have a job but do not have health insurance,
right?
Those are the individuals that often get fall through the cracks, because if you're on Medicaid, then they're able to use other services that are available, or if they have insurance but it's not very good insurance because that's all that's being provided, then again they often fall through the cracks. It's sad to say that we can do better with Medicaid, and that's great, and I'm happy that we can do well with Medicaid, but those individuals who are working and working poor as they're classified, the services, there's a lot of huge gaps in those.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next question, are there open adoptions in which recovering biological parents can have some type of relationships once they have recovered?
There are. The adopting parent has to agree to it.
Okay.
And in most cases in Michigan, children, the focus is family placement. So when children are removed from parents, the focus is to find relative placement because the kids are familiar and it's less traumatizing for children. But second, it gives the opportunity for the parents to work with their family. And in those circumstances, I've seen parents who have recovered, but they recovered later. One of the huge problems with child protective proceedings is that we have time frames that are mandated by the federal government to move cases, and they don't often or always coincide with the time frames of getting sober. And particularly with individuals who have a long history of addiction and multi-substances, sometimes it takes 18 months, and the system doesn't like to wait 18 months. And we call them competing clocks. So we try to slow down that clock in the child protective proceedings, but sometimes that system is moving quicker than the parents can keep up with, and that's one of the barriers for our parents. So that's why family placement is a better form of placement, so that there is the opportunity.
That's a tough one for sure.
It is really, it's a hard one because
right.
When a 1-year-old is removed from care, 2 years is a really big time frame. When you're 30 and you're talking 2 years, well, that's just 32. That's, for us that are way past 30, that's nothing.
Nothing.
For a baby, those first 3 years are critical in terms of their development. And so when it's the majority of their entire life, that's a critical time frame in terms of the best interest of a child. And those competing issues between hopefully getting the parent sober and the best interest of the child sometimes are button heads, and obviously the best place for kids are with their parents where it's a safe, sober environment, and sometimes that just can't be provided.
Right. So let's see, is the friend of a court ever a part of the family's plan for recovery reunification?
Yes.
Kind of answered that, yeah.
And they can. Again, it's a little easier in a smaller county than Wayne, because even in Wayne, I think you separate things between child protection and domestic cases. And when that happens, again, you get those silos that don't always speak to each other. But friendly court's a pretty critical, important part of the system. And they have a distinct source of funding that is intended to help parents. 66% of all the friend of the court is paid by the federal government. So they have mandates that they're supposed to do. And if the friend of the court system is used properly, it can be very helpful for our families.
So if somebody if the county doesn't have a family court, how does a person go about getting started, getting one started?
Well, we're hoping in Michigan, we have new leadership at Department of Health and Human Services, and that they are going to start focusing on family treatment courts. I have a meeting that's coming up on the 14th, actually, this month, and because I have the oldest one, we're going to be working. We only have like 5 or 6 in the entire state because they're labor intensive. Other states have been way ahead of us, Massachusetts, New York, even Indiana. So we're hoping to get more family treatment courts because we have kids in care. In my estimation, 80% of the children in foster care are a result of substance addiction. And that's approximately 500,000 children in this country. That tells you that 400,000 children are in care as a result of addiction. And so it should be our #1 priority to work with our families to help our parents with this issue.
Absolutely. That's a high number for sure. So here's another question. Is there any effort to intervene on behalf of a parent whose ex is doing whatever he or she can to crush the other parent's chance of getting time with the children? I know that's kind of a loaded question.
Well, you know, they have clearly a parent can make a referral to Department of Health and Human Services, you know, where an investigation is conducted, and if the custodial parent has an addiction, hopefully the agency does step in. The goal, however, should be not to crush, but to help that parent with the addiction make the changes, because children need sober moms and they need sober dads. They need both. And if the agency doesn't step in, that parent, the sober parent, could petition for custody and present a case that it's in the best interest of the child to be with them. The unfortunate part of the custody system is it doesn't have it's not treatment focused. But clearly, if you have judges who are cross-trained, they can develop treatment plans that would help that parent move into sobriety so that they could provide for their child. Children need a mom and they need a dad. Sometimes one's not available for many reasons, and addiction just being one of them. But if there's a mom and a dad, that's the best situation if they're both sober.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Thank you so much. I don't have any more questions in the chat. Does anybody else have any other questions that they would like to ask of our speakers? This has been a fantastic topic this evening, and all 3 of you have done a really great job of informing us on this really challenging topic.
And sorry about the cough, it just caught me that one more.
Yeah, was there something else that you wanted to add, Judge Joberg? I know we asked a lot of questions. That was probably part of your presentation.
Catch up on my cough. The key in these cases, in my opinion, is early identification with the proper assessments, that people who are skillful in the area of assessments, and it sounds counterintuitive, but for drug courts and treatment courts, those individuals who are high risk and high needs they can be treated the most effectively way in an intensive program such as drug courts. And it sounds counterintuitive, and our prosecutors don't like high risk, high needs people. But the truth of the matter is drug courts and treatment courts work most effectively with those individuals. And April's story, clearly she was high risk and high needs, and the changes that she made are amazing. So I just, the earlier you can get to individuals when they come into the system, particularly when they want to get treatment because they're afraid. We found when we remove children, and there's also there's a pending criminal case, that early on issue, if we can get people in with the treatment and caring individuals that will provide support, that's tends to be far more successful than traditional probation or other forms of family work. So that, to me, the system needs to act early and often.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Do you ladies have any other last closing remarks before we depart for the evening? You all have so much great information to share. I'm sure if we stayed on, we'd have a lot more questions coming your way, but anything that you would like to add?
Dora, this is Steve Kuhlman from Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network, and really enjoyed the program. April and Aaron and Judge 𝗙𝗺𝗏 were just fabulous. Wanted to just as a reminder, we have two of the Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network ambassadors that are signed in for tonight. They're trained on a variety of mental health subjects, and they go out and they share their knowledge of lived experience and all of the training that they've done to providers and clubhouses and drop-in centers and a lot of forums like we're listening to today. So you had a chance to hear from Kelly, and also we have Tamaria White, but we have 15 ambassadors that go out and promote mental health services in every way, shape, and form. And so just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. But thank you for a great program tonight.
Thank you so much for that, Steve. I appreciate you guys being on this evening and all your support that you always give FAN. It's fantastic. So if there are no further questions, I just want to thank all of you so much for being on, taking time out of your busy day. I know that this is not always easy to sit down for an hour and a half and go through a presentation like this, but I do appreciate it. I think it was very, very helpful and valuable information. And obviously we'll have a record of this, so if people want to go back and hear your expertise, I think that would be fantastic. So again, a huge shout out to all of our speakers, and thank you all for attending, and have a great rest of your day. And please join us. I hope that you guys can do the walk run with us on April 29th, and also join in for our Overdose Awareness Day event on the 31st, and then meet us back here for our September forum, the first Monday in September. Okay? So thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Have a blessed evening.
Thank you. You as well. Okay.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.